Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 Sanderson Farms Initial Research Show. Hope you all had a great weekend, enjoyed the President's Cup. My end, I was thrilled to just be a casual fan. That tells you how my DFS went. I made no outright wager, so just kind of got wrapped up in the team competition, rooting for the United States, all that good stuff. But hopefully your outright wagers went well, your DFS went well. I had enough Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth to keep me afloat, but did not have Jordan Spieth as a captain at all. Morikawa, while he didn't disappoint, he only played 3 sessions. I was really high on Morikawa. The one thing I feel like I did get right, Tom Kim was a breakout star. But we are back into the regular PGA Tour schedule and supposedly back in my lane. We are in Jackson, Mississippi for the Sanderson Farms. So let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best resource out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter gambler and a much better DFS player. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to all of my social media, Twitter, Instagram, Discord server, and Twitch. I will mention Twitch first, as I will be live tomorrow morning, back on the usual schedule. I'm going to say around 10:30 a.m. That's what has been the norm the past 2 or so weeks when I have done regular shows. So be looking for me 10:30 a.m. on Twitch. And I will also be posting to Twitter and Instagram when I do go live. But the easiest way to find me on Twitch is to just find my channel. You can find the link in the description and then subscribe there so you don't miss any of the notifications when I go live. But speaking of social media, I'm also on Twitter and Instagram. Tomorrow on Twitch, I'll be doing research around the winners of the Sanderson Farms, some course-based research, all that good stuff. So if you want to see some of that, give me a follow at the links in the descriptions, Twitch and Instagram and Twitter. I'll be posting that research later on in the evening. And then finally, we're live. Chat's open. I want to hear from you all. How did your President's Cup go? Who did you think was the breakout star for either team? Did you watch much of it? All of that good stuff. How much do you know of the Sanderson Farms? What are you looking forward to this week? So I want to hear from you all. But let's do what we're here for. Let's do our initial research for the 2023 Sanderson Farms. And let me make sure I have the tab I want open. We transition over to the GCSAA tournament fact sheet. And as I mentioned, we are in Jackson, Mississippi, the Country Club of Jackson. For the Sanderson Farms. This is a John Fott and Mike Gogol design, the only design on the PGA Tour that I know of from these two. Let me center my camera here real quick. There we go. The scorecard yardage is listed at 7,461 yards, so would be deemed a long course per Fantasy National. But when we go into the historic conditions of the Sanderson Farms, you'll see that this yardage is a bit misleading, so we'll get into that. The green sizes here at the Country Club of Jackson, slightly larger than tour average by about 200 square feet. The average green size on tour is about 6,000 square feet. Actually, it's a little bit more than that, but I round down to nice, full, basic round numbers. So I round down to 6,000. This is at 6,200. A little bit of fairway, not a lot of rough here in Jackson, Mississippi at the Country Club of Jackson. So you don't have to worry about that. There are 5 holes with water in play. The biggest thing to take as we prepare for the week, I mentioned last week for the President's Cup that more than likely it was going to be fast Bermuda. I could see it trending to lightning. Where it was lightning all weekend long, it was extremely fast. That is the case here as well. The past 2 years, the Sanderson Farms has had lightning speed Bermuda greens. And it was fast the years prior to that. So these are very, very quick Bermuda greens. So now that we have a little bit of data and we're coming off a tournament or a President's Cup that had lightning speed greens, we can get a feel for who performs well on those. The fairways are Bermuda as well. The rough is a combination of Bermuda and Zoysia. The interesting thing for this year's course, or this year's tournament, course lost 2 weeks of prep in August due to rain, including a 2-day period where 10.5 inches rained in Jackson. So how that's going to affect the tournament, really, I don't know. But if you do, by all means, put it in chat, put it in the comments. But apparently they had a lot of rain last month that delayed their ability to prep the course. But there is a look at the Country Club of Jackson, the Sanderson Farms, from a GCSAA tournament fact sheet. As a quick recap, it says a long course at 7,461 yards. That's a bit misleading. We'll get into that. Just slightly larger than average tour size greens, 5 holes with water in play, extremely fast, lightning Bermuda greens. So now let's move on over to Fantasy National. And I noticed that Fantasy National had brought in the Sanderson Farms data about 8:15 or so. I kept checking earlier in the day. It hadn't been loaded, so to be honest with you, I haven't went through the Sanderson Farms field that much. I just brought or just filtered to the specifications we did last week, or 2 weeks ago, excuse me, for the Fortinet. You see the players that have played extremely well leading into the new PGA Tour season, and or the Korn Ferry Tour grads that played well at the Fortinet. So you have players like Denny McCarthy, Milano Grillo, JT Poston was on a heater in this, back 2/3 of the PGA Tour schedule. Taylor Moore, Svensson, Mark Hubbard, Tigala. But a tournament that is lacking a lot of big names, as is the case a lot of times with these fall events. That's why I was very happy to see some of the internationals playing in the Fortinet. These fall events tend to get, I don't want to say forgotten, but just passed over by the bigger names. After a long PGA Tour season, they just like to take time off, and they usually just skip these events. And that seems to be the case again this week, minus Sam Burns, again, the defending champion. But for a quick look at some of the bigger names here, or the guys that have played well. Your top 10 strokes gained total players since June 1st have been JT Poston, Milano Grillo, Denny McCarthy, Sheston Hadley, Taylor Moore, Adam Svensson, Andrew Putnam, Mark Hubbard, Sahith Theegala, and Trey Mullinax. Sam Burns, surprisingly, is just 13th in strokes gained total. But we'll see that he will pop on a lot of these filters later in the week. Before we get too much further, let's go ahead and move to the course breakdown via Fantasy National. And the scorecard is as such. The first thing I like to do when looking at a course and its scorecard is to find the 9th and 10th most difficult holes. If par falls between those two, then the course will play to exactly average. Well, 9th is under par. 8th is right at par, essentially. So that would tend to let you think that it would be on the easier end, but average. Not really the case. There are some really, really low scores here at the Country Club of Jackson. The easiest hole, the par 5 third, plays to 35 hundredths of a shot under par. Then you have 3 hundredths of a shot under par, the best eagle chance, and it's not very high. There's just a lot of birdies on this course. 40.5% here, 38%, 35.5%, 34%. There's just a lot of birdies here on this course, where you can see the second toughest hole is just a 1/10 over par. The toughest hole is 2/10 over par. Now that's a pretty difficult hole, but when you go from 2/10 to 1/10, and that's the second most difficult hole on the course, there's not a lot of high scores to be had here at the Country Club at Jackson. You'll see a lot of the length of this course comes in the par 5s. You got 612, 591, 554, a bit shorter, and then 584. So a lot of this length, especially on the scorecard, is in the par 5s. Let's move down to a graphical view of Country Club Jackson. In your top 10s, you'll see a theme here. Strokes gained putting, dominant, kind of like it was at the Fortinet, but this still will play as a ball strikers course majority of the time because off the tee is somewhat important here. You move to the top 5s. Again, more and more putting. So even though the around the green is losing in relation to off the tee, it's still getting closer to a short game course just because of the amount of putting. And then the winners, all putting. All putting here. Around the green does not matter at all. Irons and off the tee does get somewhat important as you climb up the leaderboard, but you can see almost 1.6 strokes gained per round putting for the winners here at the Country Club of Jackson. We move to the average strokes gained by hole by par. Let me scroll up so you can see the top 10s here. Top 10s, 5s, 4s, and 3s, fairly balanced. Obviously the par 5 is the highest, just over 2/10. You go to the top 5s, you'll start to see that it really takes off. And then the winners really dominate the par 5s. Dominate the par 5s. In fact, the winners take advantage of the par 3s as well, but not so much until you get to the winners. So not sure how much we're going to focus on the par 3s. That will definitely be part of the research tomorrow on Twitch, focusing around winners here at the Sanderson Farms. But the overall takeaway here in terms of strokes gained by hole by par are par 5s. It is just par 5 scoring here at Sanderson Farms. Hole composition, the 4 par 3s play to two of them fairly long, 200 to 225. You got one 175 to 200 and one short one. You've got a drivable par 4. You've got 6 short-ish par 4s. You do have 2 long and 1 extremely long par 4. But as I mentioned, the length of this course on the scorecard comes in the par 5s. You've got 3 above 550, 1 above 600. Approach shots, even though this is supposedly a long course, that you saw the greens, they're fast, they're lightning. They keep this course fast and firm. So you get a lot of run out. So as much as the course on the scorecard is long, you get a lot of approach shots from 100 to 125, 125 to 150. Now, yes, the most common approach shot is 200 plus, but those are players attacking the par 5s in 2. So we'll see if these proximities, these approach shot lengths are the most important factor or most important approach shot length, if there's one at all. And we'll do that quite a bit tomorrow on the Data Dive. Might get to it tomorrow and at Twitch, but I'm generally trying to focus on winners as opposed to this kind of stuff. So the historic cut line, this will speak to the ease of the course and the tournament. 2018, 2019, it was even par, which is actually a little bit more on the difficult end of average. But the course or the tournament has gotten very easy over the past 3 years, including last year where it was a -4 cut. That's very easy. And you can see that here. You got 20% birdies, 13% bogeys, and only 1.2% doubles, so the birdies heavily outweigh the bogeys and the doubles. Driving accuracy, again, this is a bit misleading. The course is fast and firm, so you're going to get a lot of run out. So while you technically will be in the rough is not penal, so guys are just getting a lot of distance, as you can see here. They're just running through the fairway essentially. Greens, again, speaking to the ease of the tournament, the ease of the course, and the fact that the greens are slightly larger than the tour average green. Greens in regulation percentage here much higher, 69% here to almost 66% on the average tour event. Players are more successful scrambling here than the average tour event. So scrambling doesn't look like it's going to be very important, because if guys are scrambling anyway, they're going to be losing lots of ground to the players that are taking advantage of an easy course. Now, something that might come into play are 3 putts per round. Now, they are slightly less than the average tour event, but for players who haven't played lightning speed greens, it's quite an adjustment. And that's why Sam Burns does so well here. If you watched much of the President's Cup, he was, and I mentioned it last week, that's another thing I felt like I got right. Sam Burns just loves fast and lightning Bermuda greens, and that's why he was putting the daylights out this weekend. And that's another reason why he has played so well at the Sanderson Farms and is the defending champion. He just puts these greens well. And he's just used to fast Bermuda, so for players that aren't, can be an issue. It really can be an issue. Average driving distance slightly higher by about a full yard. Doesn't sound like much, it can be, but shorter hitters can still thrive here because they get that added distance. And again, speaking to the larger than average green sizes, the proximity when you hit the green regulation further away than the average tour event by about 1.5 feet. All right, so there is a look at the Sanderson Farms from a graphical and scorecard view. We'll move back to the strokes gained view here at Fantasy National. Now that we have seen the green type, the speeds, well, we haven't seen the speeds. I'll show you that here in a second, but you're going to have to take my word for it. We're going to look at Bermuda, and we're going to look at fast and lightning. I'll do both because I'm sure there's not enough rounds for just lightning. So let's do fast and lightning. I will absolutely have to extend the timeline. So let's go all the way back to... in fact, I do want to include last year. So let's go to September 1st of last year. It's a little bit more than 12 months. I just want to make sure I'm encapsulating last year's tournament. I normally don't like to do that, but this is just an emphasis on how fast these greens can get. So you see Sam Ryder. In fact, that's fine. 9:30. So that's a good note going forward. If you see me using 10-1 2021, it's essentially back to the Sanderson Farms. But anyway, so we've got enough rounds here. So your top performers in the past calendar year from essentially October 1st. You know what? I'm just going to do that so it's not confusing. From October 1st, 2021 to last week, your top performers on fast and lightning Bermuda greens have been Brendan Todd, Sam Burns, Wyndham Clark, Sepp Straka, Denny McCarthy, Mackenzie Hughes, Chesson Hadley, John Hudd, Davis Riley, and Scott Stallings. Again, just hammering the point home, there's a reason why Sam Burns plays so well here. He puts the daylights out on fast lightning Bermuda greens. The Valspar where he won later on in the PGA Tour season, fast Bermuda greens. Arnold Palmer, always lightning speed Bermuda greens. Phoenix is fast, I believe. And you can see this column here is where, well, it highlighted them all. It's the third from the right. Hopefully you can see that right here. This one here. So, I mean, you don't see much red here, and you've got, I mean, there's a round where he gained 4.5 at the Players. He gained nearly 4.5 at the Arnold Palmer. He just puts the daylights out on these fast and especially lightning Bermuda greens. I will show you the strokes gained total. Actually, I'm not going to do the long. I'm going to do easy. So in that same time period, essentially the last 12 months, but since October 1st, 2021 till last week, your top players in rounds that are easy, they are Seamus Power, Mark Hubbard, Taylor Moore, Sam Burns, Russell Henley, Davis Riley, Christian Bezadenhout, Mackenzie Hughes, Adam Svensson, Trey Mullinax, and Denny McCarthy. Before we get too much further into it, because I even changed my mind in the middle of thinking about what I wanted to show as far as research, let's go to the historic conditions. And one of the reasons, well, let me take off this easy filter first before I forget. One of the reasons why I didn't want to show long courses, you look at the past 2 years, it has played to 72 to 7,400. Now, my guess is that it's very close to 7,400 yards, but it's still not over 7,400 yards, which is a long course defined by Fantasy National. So I'm a little hesitant, like I was at the Fortinet, since the Fortinet scorecard-wise had measured to 72 to 7,400, when on the GCSA tournament fact sheet it was, I think, 7,130 something. So it's supposed to be short, and had not played short for a long time. Same here with the Sanderson Farms, including a round in 2020 that was less than 7,200 before you went back into 2019 where it was over 7,400. So I'm quite hesitant to look at over 7,400 yard metrics because of this right here. But to the putting points that I've been making the past 2 years, every single round has been lightning speeds, and it was fast before that. But the interesting thing here, even though they are lightning and fast greens, they are very, very receptive, soft and medium in terms of firmness. So very fast but very receptive greens here at the Country Club of Jackson. But you see, I mean, every round last year was easy. You had 2 rounds of easy and average the year before. 2020, 2 rounds of easy and average. It's just played easy for a long time. You did have 1 round of difficult in 2018. That was certainly an outlier. Hitting fairways, again, it is listed as difficult just because the percentage of players that end up in the fairway is low. The guys generally don't care. You don't see the rough being penal. It's been average, and it hasn't been difficult to play out of, including some years where it was short. So the guys really aren't concerned about finding the fairway. It is not as much of a premium here at the Country Club of Jackson. Let's see. Let's take a quick look at the tournament history. And I have went ahead and made the color-coded chart in Excel for a little bit later on in the show. But this is strokes gained total sorted in the past 5 years here at the Sanderson Farms. Surprisingly, it's not Sam Burns who's number 1. It is Denny McCarthy. He is 4 for 5. All 4 made cuts are top 20s. So, and then 2 of them are top 10. So he has played this event extremely well. Not surprisingly, since this is a putting fiesta, it was surprising to see him struggle at the Fortinet, and yet the numbers said he was supposed to be good. He played well, but he had been 0 for 4 at the Fortinet coming into this year's iteration of it. So seeing Denny McCarthy with the most strokes gained total makes a whole lot of sense. And then your defending champion, Sam Burns, also 4 for 5. Now he has more top-heavy finishes, the defending champion. He's also got a T3 in 2019. He also has 2 middling finishes to go with his missed cut. So quite a bit of separation here from Denny McCarthy to Sam Burns, just because McCarthy has 2 top 10s and 2 more top 20s, whereas Sam Burns is very top heavy and then middling. But those two are also separated quite a bit from third and lower. JT Poston has played this event well. Kevin Streelman, Adam Shank, CT Pan in 2 tries is 6th most in terms of strokes gained total. 2 top 15s. Munoz, your winner in 2020, that's probably why he's here. Henrik Norlander, the past 2 seasons, has top 5'd this event both times to go with a miscut. Ryan Armour in 2018, winner. So there's a look at some of the guys that play this event fairly well, or at least have in years past. At the other end of the spectrum, players that just don't play this event well for whatever reason. You got Richie Werenski, who's 3 for 5 in making the cut, including a top 20. But he's got 2 clunkers of made cuts and 2 outright missed cuts. So I imagine these 2 are really, really bad. If they're weighing him down this way, I mean, he's not even close to the next guy. He's more than double almost with a top 20. So I mean, this is clearly an aberration. Cody Gribble 0 for 3, Jim Herman 0 for 3. Surprising to see Vincent Whaley 3 for 3, but none of them inspire confidence. Right here, Brendan Todd, the number 1 putter in the past year on Fast and Lightning Bermuda greens, 0 for 3 here. So another Denny McCarthy at the Fortinet type of situation here. I imagine he's going to be pretty high on the final mixed condition model, since I'm going to have a lot of putting on it. But historically, Brendan Todd hasn't played this event well. So another example of course fit or course history versus analytics. A couple other names here. Sepp Straka 0 for 4. Wyndham Clark 3 for 5. A top 20, nothing else really stands out. Nick Taylor has struggled. So there's a look at the players that don't play this event well for whatever reason. So let's come back to the strokes gained view here at Fantasy National. Again, not going to do too much with the over 7,400 filter, since we have seen it hasn't played over 7,400 the past 3 years. So let's just kind of get a gauge of, let's do a couple of different things here. Let's look at strokes gained approach. I'm going to definitely have to bring this sample size in a lot. So let's go June 1st, 2022. Your top strokes gained approach players in that time frame: Russell Henley, Chez Reavie, Lee Hodges, Mark Hubbard, Brendan Steele, Adam Shank, Alex Smalley, Chesson Hadley, Luke List, and Stefan Jaeger. Around the green, we've seen just does not matter at all. Let's see, anything else on this tab or this page view we want to take a look at? No, probably not. I am curious to see how many lightning rounds there are, just pure lightning. And I'll go back to that October the 1st. 15? 17? Okay. So why don't we go ahead and do, let's see if Bermuda, how much that changes. Not a lot in terms of the amount of rounds, because you have some lightning bents in there as well. But you see, Country Club of Jackson, Bay Hill, which is the Arnold Palmer Invitational, East Lake Tour Championship, Innisbrook, that is the Valspar, PJ National, Quail Hollow. So these places that have Lightning Bermuda. I don't think that it would be any benefit to just look at Lightning Bermuda. If there were a lot of rounds, I'd have shown it, but I was just curious. Let's bring this back into June 1st. Something that I have seen this in my quick amount of research, and we saw it on the graphical view. It's just birdies. It's birdies, birdies, birdies. I might throw in a birdies or better because eagles do happen. They're not very common, but they do happen. You've got a 2.5 here, a 1.5. So it's not that it is non-existent. It's just kind of rare. It's just a birdie fest. But your top birdies or better players. In fact, let me add the easy. That should be a good indicator here. We're gonna have to really lengthen that out. Let's go January 1st. How many easy rounds were there? Plenty. All right, so your top birdies or better gained players in easy rounds since January 1st. Davis Riley, Adams Vinson, Michael Thompson, Emiliano Grillo, Stefan Jaeger, Seamus Power, Trey Mullinax, Taylor Moore, Vincent Whaley, Peter Malnati, and Russell Henley. Trey Mullinax, a lot of that's probably coming at the Barbasol, which he won. Seamus Power won the Barbasol the year before, and that vaulted him to a very successful season on the PGA Tour. Grillo has played well on easy or in easy rounds. Let's take a look here. Like the Sony first 2 rounds, the Amex, the Farmer surprisingly had 1 round of easy. The entirety of the Byron Nelson was easy. That's generally how that works. The John Deere is typically easy, all 4 rounds, although it looks like he was average round 1 this year. Okay. And here's his birdies or better column. He's getting cut off a little bit. That is the second row. Okay. Lots of opportunities, though, for Grillo. Okay. So I just wanted to get a feel for what rounds these are. There's your top birdies or better gained players when it's easy. Don't think I want to go too much into it again. We're going to do a lot of this tomorrow in the Data Dive show, and I'll be doing it on Twitch in preparation for the show tomorrow. So again, a not so subtle reminder to check me out on Twitch in the mornings. I meant to have this up. Let's bring up last year's scorecard. Let's bring up last year's scorecard just to get a feel for how it played last year. Again, remember, all easy rounds. The greens were very soft, very receptive. I imagine that might be the same this year with the amount of rain they've gotten. But every single round was lightning speed greens. Wind can pick up a little bit here. It'll be interesting to see as we move through the week what the wind forecast is. This was Cameron Young's big coming out party last year. Was nearly in position. Well, I mean, was in position to win, but played extremely well all weekend long. Let's see, Norlander we talked about being very, very good the past 2 seasons here. There's Trey Mullinax, easy course. You got to think about Trey Mullinax, Siwoo, Sahith Theegala. Yeah. So let's just kind of take a look here. Look at some strokes gained. A couple other numbers here. So unfortunately, Sam Burns here is getting cut off at the top. Yeah, sorry about that, but he was actually -2 in strokes gained putting last year. But you see every other player. Let's see, actually all but one in the top 25 other than Sam Burns. So the easiest way to say this, 2 players in the top 25 last year at the Sanderson Farms were negative in strokes gained putting. That's it. It is all putting. Nick Watney, 11.7 on the greens last year. Varner 6.1. Granted, he's not here; he's at Live. But Trey Mullinax 5.5. Seth Reeves 4.5. Landry 5.7. Lots and lots of putting here. I mean, strokes gained approach, to be fair, quite a bit as well. But you can see just the heavy emphasis on putting. Don't want to go, again, too much into this, but birdies and bogeys. This will tell you everything you need to know. I know Sam Burns is getting cut off here. He's at an 8.4. Then you have Cameron Young at 9.4. And then you can see the rest of this. You don't have a player negative in terms of birdies gained until you come down to T31. That's a lot. That's a lot. So, and I mean the numbers of these. Birdies gained 9.4, 8.4, a bunch of 4.4s, whereas the bogeys, yeah, I mean you have a 5 and you have some 4s, but nowhere near the amount in the birdies gained. So, all birdies gained here all the time. Eagles, it's okay, somewhat. I mean, you had Trey Mullinax 1.5. Anybody 2.5? No. So you just had Mullinax, Tringali, Luke List at 1.5. Reefers and Ramey. So, okay. I think that's going to do it for the Fantasy National portion of the show. Let me bring you, in fact, I'll come back to this strokes gained view in case we want to take a quick look at something. But how did you like? Hey, James, I'm sorry, I just now saw that. So if you had typed that in Twitch chat a while back, I apologize. I just now saw it. My lineups were underwhelming. For as much as I feel like I got things correct, I didn't have any Jordan Spieth captainship, which kind of hurt. I had a lot of Jordan Spieth, just not him as a captain. I didn't have enough Justin Thomas, not near enough Patrick Cantlay and Xander, who played extremely well except for their Friday or Saturday 4-ball match. But I don't feel like I was off in terms of my analysis. It was more of a lineup construction and salary composition issue that I had. Morikawa was a little disappointing in the sense that he only played 3 sessions. I was really high on him. Cameron Young lost. I know he lost his singles today. He lost yesterday 4-ball. He didn't play nearly as well as I thought. The one good thing I did, I completely avoided Scotty Scheffler. I told you I was going to avoid Scotty Scheffler. He had a bad President's Cup, but my lineups were underwhelming. Just not the right captains in this, and that's what you got to have in a showdown style format. Hopefully yours turned out well. I know you were high on Spieth as well. Hopefully you had him in some captainships. Thomas, Siwoo Kim, who, I mean, I'll take all of the blame for it. I was nowhere near Siwoo Kim. He played extremely well this week. Tom Kim played well. So hopefully yours turned out well. But let me move to Microsoft Excel and bring up first the comparison course spreadsheet that I make and edit every tournament. So this is the evaluation. Again, a quick reminder, this is any full field course that has been consistent on the PGA Tour compared to every other consistent course full field event on the PGA Tour. So you can see Sanderson Farms slightly below average in terms of off the tee. This is a bit of a misleading number. I'll show you that here in a bit. Approach, slightly less important, but I mean, again, the heavy emphasis here on putting. 7/10 of a shot more important here at Sanderson Farms than the average full field course. Distance, important, and it's going to get higher due to some outliers, which I'll get into here in a bit. Fairways, again, just not important. It is not important. The course is fast and firm. Guys are going to get a lot of run outs, so they're going to be in the rough, but the rough's not penal, and they don't care. Good drives, I mean, even greens to that extent. Not really. You just got to be putting. You just got to be putting here. Again, emphasis on birdies. Sorry, making sure I don't lose my spot. Eagles right at average for a course. Birdies 2/3, or how am I going to say that? 6/10 or 2/3 of a full stroke. More important here. Bogeys still somewhat important, but heavy emphasis on birdies. Then we get to some interesting stuff here. Par threes. This is mainly coming from the winners, because we saw graphically in terms of the top 10s and the top 5s, the par threes definitely lagged. But it's saying it's 4/10 of a shot more important. Again, there's some outliers at work here. Par fours, it's saying it's very, very important. Again, some more outliers at work here, and it'll bring it down. But this will give you a decent idea. Like the one drivable par 4 says it's the most important par 4 here. Do you want to put a lot of emphasis into one hole? I don't. So really, the most common par 4 length is here, and it's just 2/10, so it's not anything extremely important. However, what we do see is the par 5s are also extremely important. There is no outlier here. It is extremely important. All of it in the 550 to 600 par 5s, even though there is one on the scorecard that measures to here. And then quickly, proximity. Nothing stands out. The 200 plus number here is still somewhat high. Not as high as somewhere like Bay Hill, where it's a 16.5. But still, that's a fairly high number, so we'll have to dig into that tomorrow in the Data Dive show. But total procs, pretty low. We saw that for the wedges, or the more common approach shots, negative. So doesn't look like, at least off hand, that the proximities are going to be very important. But let me show you what I'm talking about with these outliers. And I'm going to go all the way back to off the tee. And it's always important to check your outliers here. So let me do a quick highlight for you all in terms of possible outliers. This one is an outlier. Like this one's an outlier, and that number wasn't even all that high. This is an outlier, and that number wasn't very high. So first off, let's go off the tee, and it was negative 0.07. Again, I just have a photographic memory. So negative 0.07. We removed this low outlier, and all of a sudden it comes to 600ths more important. Again, not extremely important in the overall grand sense of things, but that is a 1300ths change from negative 0.07 to 0.06. So it does get important when you take out that outlier. Let's see, you've got this driving distance, and it showed that it was somewhat important with it in there. You take it out, and it becomes even more important. So driving distance is going to be a thing this week, and I'm going to be looking at that. Without that outlier, it's even more important than at the Farmers Insurance, where it's very, very important. Everybody knows about Torrey Pines and its difficulty, and where you just have to be a long hitter to succeed there. And Sanderson Farms, without that outlier, is more important than there. So good stuff there. Good drives gained. It was low. It's even lower at negative there. Bring that back. Greens, again, not important at all. Sorry, let me 0.24. This is where I want to start getting into it, these par 3s and 4s and 5s. So let me bring that back. All right, par 3s. Look here. A 3.08, the next highest is a 1.78, so that's a very clear outlier. If you remove that, the par 3s look a whole lot less important. They were in the 0.4s, I believe. You add that back in, yeah, it's 0.4, drops all the way to 0.1. Supposedly still more important than the average full field course, but not as drastic at all. And you can see this entire year basically was a pretty big outlier. Now in 2018, this one played somewhat close. This one did not. I'll go ahead and remove it just to show the effect that 1 year can have, and that's why you want to gather more than just 1 year. Like, we want to look at more than just 2022, and you want to go back far enough to where you have a stable amount of data, but you don't want to go back too far where it becomes insignificant. So again, par threes down to 1200ths, nothing jumps off the page in terms of extreme importance. So I might put a little bit of focus into par threes, and we'll look at it tomorrow for sure, but I don't see a whole lot into it. Moving to the par fours, you got fours and a high 3 and a 7, almost an 8. So again, we were, I think, 0.72 in terms of importance on par fours. You take out that outlier, again, that entire year was a huge outlier in terms of par fours. You take that out, it's right at course average. It's right at course average. And all of them are under importance, except for the drivable par 4, which, again, I don't want to put a whole lot of weight into. So take out the extreme outlier year, par 4s aren't nearly as important. Now we come to the par 5s, and you still have one big outlier here, but even so, it is still 0.3 of a shot more important. Now, it's not as drastic as it would say it is whenever you have the outlier in there, 0.75 of a shot. But it's still important, 0.3. This is an outlier. This one, and see, the 600 to 650 wasn't an outlier that year. So when you come back, still, when you remove the high outlier, it's 2/3 of a stroke more important. It's pretty high. So we're going to put a lot of emphasis into this, see who plays this range of par 5s well. Let's see. Anything in terms of proximity? Yeah, that one's a high one, and we were already negative in terms of importance. Like the 200 plus. Like, it looks like 2019 in itself was just a huge outlier, because a lot of these things have been in 2019. So I'm curious to see, because it was at about an 8 point something. Now it moves to a 2.87. So, yeah. I think there's a lot of outlier stuff going on with that. But we'll do that a bunch in the Data Dive show. Probably get into it a little bit in the Twitch stream tomorrow morning. Again, 10:30-ish. I'm going to start saying 10:30 as opposed to 10 a.m. That's been kind of the norm. So be looking for me at 10:30. Last thing I want to do for the initial research is to bring up what I call the early look file. This is the tab in Fantasy National that has the strokes gained total right here. This is this number broken out in the various metrics. So Anders Albertson, he's only played this event one time. He finished 5th, so he's got some very, very good metrics. What I'm going to do, I'm going to filter out all of the players who have not played this event more than once, or who have only played this event once, excuse me. So, CT Pan, we saw that he's played this event twice. He's gotten a T11 and a T12, I think. All of his in putting. He's actually been okay around the green. His irons have been good. Stuart Sink has played this event well. There's Denny McCarthy around the green and putting. Nick Watney, putting. Surprising to see Taylor Moore has played it twice. His has been off the tee. But again, that emphasizes that off the tee is a little bit of a factor here. Streelman's played this event well. He's actually putt well here. He's generally not a good putter. Mullinax. There's Sam Burns, who's actually, again, been negative in the putting, but he just loves fast and lightning Bermuda. Driving distance, again, you see a pretty heavy concentration of green in here. You do have some players that are under average. CT Pan, that's never been his game. Denny McCarthy is not long at all. Hayden Buckley. But, I mean, Sam Burns, Trey Mullinax, Shank can hit it. Taylor Moore moves it. Nick Watney, not so much, but that speaks to the fast and firm here. Stuart Sink has gained distance. So you see, just distance is a factor here. Let's move on over to birdies and bogeys. There's a heavier concentration of green here. I want you to take a look at the numbers. 4.4, and it's a lighter shade of green. 3.9, and it's the highest. So make sure you know what you're looking at in terms of the actual number. The color can be a bit misleading because the color is based on just that column. So 4.4 to 3.9. Now Nicholas Lindheim is bogeys. Stuart Sink is more bogeys, but you got Denny McCarthy birdies. Buckley is about the same. Watney's about the same. Taylor Moore birdies. So I mean, there's a little bit of everything for different guys, I should say. But I'll highlight the top. What's this? Top 15. The average in birdies is 2.0. The average in bogeys, 2.5. Maybe I should go down a little further than to emphasize the point. Let's do top 25. The average here is 1.7. So Joel Damon, 1.6. So the more you come down, the more birdies get emphasized. So, it's not to say that bogeys aren't important. Bogey avoidance isn't important. It is. But we're going to put more focus into birdies gained. And you see, like, eagles just aren't that big of a deal. I might do birdies are better. I mean, I will do birdies are better. I always do birdies are better when I'm looking at birdies. But eagles just aren't. There's no justification for looking at eagles by themselves. So I'm going to go there. Par threes, we saw that there was a big outlier year, but CT Pan, that's his game. He takes advantage of par threes. He's a shorter hitter, but he's usually pretty precise with his irons. Stuart Sink, same way. Nick Watney has played the par threes well, but they're not mandatory. I mean, we've seen Trey Mullinax play very well here, and he's been a disaster on the par threes. You move to the par fours, decent success here. Like, we'll look at Sam Burns. He's been pretty good at the par fours in general. He generally plays longer par fours better because of his length. Denny McCarthy has played par fours extremely well, and the most important length here, the 400 to 450. Ramey's been pretty bad, but has had some success. Poston has had some success, but what you'll see, let's see, we'll go to the top 25 again. Top 25 average in strokes gained par 4 is 2.5. Let's go to the par 5s. Down to, I think it's Joel Damon. Yeah. 2.5. Same thing, basically. So, Chad Ramey has played him well. CT Pan's played him well. Sam Burns takes advantage of him. Trey Mullinax is taking advantage of him. There's Sebastian Munoz, who won in 2019 or 2020. He's played the par 5s well. So par 5s are extremely important. And you look here in the 550 to 600, you've got a negative 0.1 here and a negative 0.2 here. And then you got to come down to Stefan Jaeger for another negative. So only 3 in the top 25 of players who have played it more than once have negative in terms of strokes gained total par 5s 550 to 600. It's just important here. The par 5s 550 to 600. We're going to put a lot of emphasis on this and a lot of emphasis on putting. But that is going to do it for the initial research of the Sanderson Farms. Again, the 15,000th reminder, I'm going to be live on Twitch tomorrow, roughly around 10:30 a.m. We're going to be doing research around the winners of the Sanderson Farms, maybe a little bit of course research, see what patterns we can find to try to exploit the betting market. And then we'll do a little bit of prep in terms of the Data Dive show. And then Tuesday, or tomorrow night, will be the Data Dive show. And then Tuesday on Twitch, we will start looking at DFS. But James, thanks for jumping in chat on Twitch. Really appreciate it. Hope your weekend went well. Thanks to everyone out there that tunes in and watches, listens, and supports the channel. I greatly appreciate it. Hopefully your weekend went well as well. For all of the wagers you made at the President's Cup, for all of the DFS contests you entered this past weekend at the President's Cup, until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive show, may all your bets be profitable.